Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review The Hurt Locker. So, it's kind of weird for me to go on and say, like, man, this movie is exciting, it's fun, it's, oh my god, like, beautiful set pieces, and... Because, when also looking at this too, this is actually someone's job. This is someone's life that is consistently being kind of at risk on a daily thing of things. Having us go on and just be like, ooh, this movie is like so like gripping and compelling and whatever. But we probably just have these people that are also to be just so like you have to be a certain kind of person to want to do this certain kind of job. And so we're really just starting to like realize that like yeah, there's a real person behind this kind of job. So but going into this though, I liked this story. uh I also really liked kind of the areas that they kind of go into and the stories that they have to go on and try to portray here. Really, it's also kind of interesting because they're kind of telling us who the characters are within this film. Kind of telling us that Jeremy Renner is to really just be like the Mel Gibson Lethal Weapon kind of character. Immediately when you get that line thrown in, like, I'm getting too old for this, like, that immediately tells us who Jeremy Renner really is, and who possibly maybe Sanborn and Eldridge are to kind of be on the opposite partner of things that are just trying to pull William back from not only putting himself at risk, but also the people that he's working with at risk. So, but not only that, we kind of get a pre-event thing that kind of leads to William James being put into this unit to go on and perform the task of being the, of course, guy who is to go on and put on the suit and is to try and defuse these bombs at some points in this film. So, with that said, right now, currently in the second recording, this movie is available on Stars. Stars actually does have a quite decent amount of content. If you have never been on Stars before, maybe there is some kind of free trial. They can go on and kind of test the waters. But I think Stars does have pretty decent content, but I'm going to give you a free option to be able to see this movie also. So you can go on to do a number of Google searching, of which that I will ask you here to do. You can go on to Google search an app called Letter C Movies. You can go ahead and download this app and dare in fact be able to watch whatever you want. New releases, stuff that is to have premium access behind it. You can be able to just kind of watch at your leisure for absolutely free. You can go on to an app called Fox HD Movies, and you'll have, and this is a Google search thing also, and you can see a logo that'll say Fox HD Movies, but a title that'll say something different. It'll say Play 1080p HD Movies. You can download that app also, and basically with both those apps combined, you'll be able to see a number of movies for free. Go onto a Google Play Store search the word TV Crush. You'll find an app that is to be called HD Movies that, of course, has like 1, 2, 3 on it. You can be able to also download that app and be able to watch Hurt Locker with subtitles at some point. But you'll be able to kind of see it for absolutely free. So, my grading system upon this movie, like, it's a great film, but it's a slow film. Because, of course, it has to be. It has to be that kind of a film. But I would have to go on and just say it's like, well, yeah, like, it's a great film. And I can't just go on and just say that it's an epic film just because of how, like, slow it is. But it is a heartbreaking film And like that's where I kind of have this like it's it's a I would say a great plus film, almost being in that epic kind of territory. Uh, and plus also like it's a way more interesting military movie than I've seen through other things. Besides maybe possibly Lone Survivor, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie, and plus also it's a true story, and so I can enjoy that movie a little bit more than this because it's based on a true story. And like I know there's also other military things out there. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite possible military film is. If you are to be a person that just kind of likes military films, maybe you like Dunkirk or Saving Private Ryan, or just let me know in the comments below. But so with that said, because I know there's those kinds of people. So with that said, let's go into that double five time territory. Let's just go into spoilers about this movie. I hope I'll be able to perfectly kind of notch everything down because there's a lot going on in these 2 hours. So with that said, let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time I get to spoil this movie. So we start out this film with, of course, Anthony Mackie, who plays Sanborn. We have uh, Brian, who's Eldridge here, and we have Guy Pearce, who is Thompson. So we, of course, have these guys who are to be, of course, military bomb disposal unit, and they're going and sending out this bot out to try and see what they have as far as this bomb is to be a thing that they're going to have to try and kind of cut the cords here, or to try to just place a thing of kind of C4 onto it and just kind of let it explode. So we have at first Sanborn, who is kind of at the joystick here, and really they're having problems like kind of getting a good eye on this bomb. And so Thompson goes on and kind of takes the kind of the joysticks or the whatever, and he tries to open this up a little bit better. So they go on and try to take these bots out, or this bot out, to put all these explosives on it, and they're gonna go and detonate this thing and then take the bot out. So what happens while they're going on and trying to do this is that the wagon is to break off of this bot, and so Thompson turns to Eldridge, is like, "Hey, did you build that?" And Eldridge is like, "No, the U.S. military built that." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So they realize that Thompson has to put on his of course, bomb suit that looks kind of very familiar to what we kind of see right here. And so we have this character that is forced to kind of walk off to check this wagon to make sure that all the bomb pieces are okay. So he decides himself to go and place these, of course, bombs here. As before he leaves, he mentions like, "Yeah, like I'm feeling really hungry for a hamburger. Like, is that weird?" And they're like, "No." More than likely, probably where they're at, because I think the beginning setting of this is Baghdad. I don't think it kind of tells us anywhere else where things are to switch or change around from. Uh, but let me know in the comments below if there was maybe something that I possibly missed. So we have Sanborn that is talking to Eldridge about possibly wanting to have this place have more grass in it, and talking that they're going to make a company called Sanborn and Son, and and talking about if somebody cuts it, like then the other will fertilize it. So all of a sudden, Sanborn is getting approached by some man wanting to have just some chit-chatting moment. Like, "Hey man, are you from New York?" And the guy just kind of shoos him away. It's like, "Go away." Like, this is no time for chit chat. Like, immediately I would just have this guy probably fire some shots off on the ground to kind of spook this guy away. But I guess it's like, hey man, like, get away. So Eldridge is telling Sanborn, it's like, hey, like, you making a friend over there? And Sanborn's like, I guess so. Like, do they not realize the risk here? It never seems like any of these people are to realize the risk whatsoever in this film. I don't know what it is. It's like you would think if the military guy would show up, you would immediately think people would be a million miles away. So we just have people that are far too curious. So all of a sudden, there's to be another man that comes out of this kind of this. It looks like a meat place because it has all this kind of like swinging duck and all this kind of like animals and meat parts. So Eldridge is to spot this man who is kind of holding on to his phone, and Eldridge is desperately like calling out to this man to tell him to put his phone down. And so Sanborn is telling Eldridge is like, hey, like, make the call, man. Like, if you want to go and take this guy out, then like, then go ahead if that's what you like. If you feel like he's doing something shady here, so Eldridge is just kind of he's stalled. He doesn't know exactly what to do, and like it kind of sucks because of course there isn't this like easily like translatable thing where and plus these people just don't go on uh and like don't see the risk of what it seems like they could be doing. um these people that sounds awful. People in general in the place that they are located, my apologies. So we find out that that phone is to be going off, and all of a sudden Thompson is to be exploding nearby these, of course, explosives. And so we find out that Thompson had sadly died, and so they're taking all of his items and kind of just bagging them up, and Thompson is now dead. So Sanborn and Eldridge are to now go on and meet with their new recruit, which is William James, which is Jeremy Renner's character, who, of course, a lot of people know him as Hawkeye. It's kind of funny to have kind of a number of people actually from this cast that would probably go on to probably be involved in some kind of Marvel movie at some point. That's kind of interesting. It would be kind of cool if we saw a lot more people, but it is what it is. So, just to kind of have that weird connection. So, we of course go off here and we have William that is to be this guy who is to basically be a man who like goes to his own drums supposedly. Like we have this guy who is to kind of scare the men that he's working with. And so we go on to this next mission, and this next mission, of course, is to be these bombs that are kind of like tied together, almost stringed like. And so we go on, and we of course have these three guys going and needing to find this other military team that was already located there, that was telling them where exactly that this is, that it's like 20 blocks out. And so William is just like, okay, well, let's just go on and just walk down the street and just make our way to where these bombs are. And so all of a sudden, like, we just have William that kind of just tosses these flashbang grenades. and both Sanborn and Eldridge are like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And he's like, "Hey, it's just a distraction." And they're like, "A distraction from what?" He's like, "What's going on? What are you seeing?" And James is saying, "It's like, well, I don't know. Like, I'll just keep on like walking down the street, and I'll tell you what I see." It's like, fuck, like so, because he's not down to the bombs yet, and so all of a sudden we have these three characters making it further and further down the street. All of a sudden to have this taxi cab that is just driving and is almost hitting William James. William James goes on and pops his gun out and is trying to have the taxi move back. But of course, the driver just is like, just stunned in shock, and so he's just not willing to move at all. We have William going and shooting by the taxi, breaking the windshield, and even going on and putting this gun to this guy's temple to tell him to move back. And then he finally does. The military grabs this man, cuffs him, and then William just keeps on, just keeping on. It's like, all right, like that's taken care of. So we go on and have William, who is to find these stack of bombs that have kind of been kind of underneath this ground. And so William goes and starts like diffusing them, and then he's like, "Oh, okay, I think we're done." But then all of a sudden he sees this like secondary like connection with another whole set of bombs, and he's like, "Wait a minute, like there's a secondary." And so he starts diffusing all of those, and he's like, "Okay, now we're done." It's just like, after William is to just be done and to go, they're just like, "Oh my god, this guy is just like, what a piece of work. What a piece of work this guy is. Oh my god." So now we go on and have this next job that kind of looks similar to the other job, but this time around these bombs are kind of much more disguised by just kind of these garbage bags, and we have this kind of very suspicious character that's going on and kind of running out of this building, and we have James, who's kind of holding up this one bomb piece as this guy's running off, thinking that this guy has some tie to what's going on here. So we of course have James that goes off and starts defusing all of these bombs. And we have at points where both Sanborn and Eldridge are to see some kind of shifty characters from the tops of these buildings, and he's really not quite, like, they're really not quite sure what these people are doing. There's even at some points where there's a guy that's holding a camera, and so Eldridge makes the joke of like, "Hey man, I guess I'm gonna be on YouTube sometime soon." It's like, God, like, these people are making these guys so agitated and just so like afraid that like they're just kind of holding off, just wanting to see what these people will do. So that way, because everybody is just so very curious, and everybody's like on the rooftops of these buildings, just want to know what's going on. And it's just like, hey man, like this, like the plate, these things are called bombs. They'll explode. Like, you should probably be in your house while it happens. So we then go on. We have Eldridge that is talking to his doctor, his, I would say therapist, but I want to kind of be nice about it. We have a guy named Cambridge, and immediately when I see this guy, I'm like, hey, like I know him from the first season of Dexter, and it's kind of good to kind of see him because I remember him as like the ice truck killer, And there's some random times where I kind of see him in certain films or certain movies. I'm like, hey, yeah, like I always remember him from the first season of Dexter, but it's like it's good to like continue to see this guy getting work. Like I saw him in the very beginning of the film Student Body. Um, for some reason or another, I couldn't watch the rest of the Student Body film, but I was just kind of like iffy about it. I'm like, should I watch it? I don't know. Um, I was very unsure about it. So even though I know it's like a new release film, it looks really interesting. I'm kind of unsure about whether to watch it or not. Anyways, pushing on. So Eldridge and Cambridge, we of course have the moment where Eldridge is kind of re-contemplating in his head that if Eldridge would have just shot that man, that Thompson would have been dead, or Thompson would not have been dead, and so Eldridge is just kind of contemplating that, like, this man's life could have been saved if he would have just pulled the trigger. So we push on, and so the next thing that they are going on and doing, of course, is this car bomb. And here's where things start to really escalate between our characters to where they just get really ticked off at one another. Both Sanborn and James and Eldridge. And we have it at some points where we have Eldridge and Sanborn that are just kind of contemplating taking the life of William James while they're kind of practicing these explosions. Where all of a sudden William's saying like, "Hey man, I think I forgot my gloves. Like I'll go and get them." And so Sanborn is telling Eldridge like, "Hey man, you know that these like explosives they just go off by accident, right? That like there could be any number of times where these things go off, and we just need to figure out how we can kind of correct that whole thing." And Eldridge is like, "So you're seriously thinking about killing this guy?" Sanborn's like, "I don't know. Like, like what do you say?" And they're like, "No, like let's not do it." So James is to grab his gun and grab his gloves, and he is to just kind of make his way back. So the next mission they go on is this car bombing mission. And so there's a number of bombs that are in the trunk of this car. So by the time that these three make it to this car, there's already a man that is wanting to try and shoot this car. And like the car is almost being set ablaze, set on fire. And so now we of course have James, who's in uh, his bomb suit gear, and he's now having this fire extinguisher, and he's spraying all over this car because he's trying to save this car because it has a bomb inside of it. And I'm just like, man, this just seems crazy. This just like he's having to like rescue this car from exploding before it actually explodes because like the explosion will be massive. So we have we of course have James, who realizes that there is a massive like number of explosives in the trunk of this car. So all of a sudden he just starts to decide like, you know what, I'm just going to take off all of my equipment, because no matter what I do, like if this bomb decides to go off, like we're all going to die. So like if he's going to go comfortable. So he takes off all of his clothes, and they end up giving him a headset. And so he kind of like he's getting so tired, like James is, of listening to Sanborn and Eldridge telling him like, "Hey man, like we can get out of here now. Like technically, like we're just gonna just take this out, and like we can leave." And so they're consistently telling him that, and James is like, no, I want to figure out uh, where the thing is for me to kind of pull this out from, so I can go on and just figure this out. Because he's going through the whole like part of the car. He's going through the back seats. He's going through the floors. He's going through any number of seats. He's going on and checking uh, the glove compartment, the radio. He's going through everywhere to try and find where this bomb is. And so he finally goes on and finds where it is, and he cuts it out, and he's like, no, man, like, I'm good. Like, we did it. And so Sanborn goes on and is to punch William in the face because, like, hey, man, never take your headset off. Because Sanborn and Eldridge were having a number of guys that they were kind of very suspicious about, and things were getting really shady. They had to go on and kill one man already, and so they're just kind of like, man, like anything could go wrong at any moment. We have Eldridge that's yelling to James to consistently like, hey man, put your headset on, and William's giving them the finger. And so after this whole thing is said and done, we have, of course, Colonel Reed that goes to, of course, James here and is like, man, you are wild, man. Just like, man, how many bombs have you, like, disarmed? Like, how many? And so we just have it where, like, James is, like, rattling off, like, 873. He's 873. Wow. You really are a wild man. He's just like, you know what? Like, I would have really wanted to just see like the ending of that story, like of like this colonel just wanting to chew this guy out, or like he's just like, man, I really just want to shake the hand of the man that just is like, man, you are wild. Like, I just thought that was like funny. But like, you're just kind of wondering if this guy is to just like I don't know if William like was wondering like what this guy was gonna do, and so maybe he was like, yeah, like I am wild, like you could give him back. But yeah, so we have, of course, Sanborn that goes on and punches William in the face, and so we then go on and have them uh, eventually go on and meet with this military outfit that, of course, is to be led by contractor team leader, which is to be Ralph. Ralph, who, of course, if you guys know Harry Potter, you'll know him as like Voldemort. That guy. He, of course, is to be in this kind of special unit that doesn't have like a bunch of camouflage on, but it kind of looks pretty dang close to like these guys' military unit as far as like gear is to be concerned. So these guys are going and they're finding these wanted men, and like they have two men, but it ends up that they got a flat tire while going on and doing this case. So they're hoping that these guys might have a spare. And so while they're going on and trying to help them out, all of a sudden they get into a firefight, which leads them to start losing some of the commander or the contractor team leader, Ralph. They start to lose some of Ralph's guys. And so even to the point of them actually losing Ralph because he gets shot while he's trying to like sniper shoot down some of these men in this one building. And so now we have Sanborn and we have James that are going and kind of snipering to try and take these guys down at this building. And we get where all of a sudden they're taking like the ammo from Ralph's dead body, and the guns are jammed because of the bullets are jammed because of the blood, and so they're like having to clean the blood and wipe down the blood, so that way they can go on and shoot these rounds, so they can take these guys down. Eldridge is to notice that there's a bunch, like there's a flock of like animals that are kind of all together, and there's to be this one guy who has this gun, and so Eldridge, of course, to take this man down, and it's like good job. So everybody goes on and is to take these people down, and they go on uh, to just really just go on to their like really next mission really here. But we also have a moment where I'm going to kind of go on and kind of go into certain parts where I don't know exactly where they're all at in this film, but they are actually in this film. So we have William James that's going on, and like one of these kids is selling DVDs on this base. He's selling $5 DVDs that really aren't that great. They're kind of shaky, or they kind of look very bootleggish. So, so they're selling these DVDs, and so William is saying like how crappy they are, and he's saying like, hey, since this kid is to do really well at soccer, then like I'll give him $5 if he goes on and like he blocks this goal, and of course he does. So the guy gives him $5. And so he also asks like, hey man, like I'll give you some more money for one of those DVDs. So we have James that is to also go on with Sanborn Eldridge, just kind of have like a night where they're kind of just having fun. They're drinking, they're getting to know one another. It seems that Sanborn, like his woman, is to kind of want a kid soon. And we just have James is like, well, hey man, like give it to her, give her your man juice, give her your your juices, whatever. Anyways, we find out that William James is married, well, technically married with a kid. And so, like, it seems like they were to get married and then they were to get divorced, but it seems that uh, William, at the end of all this, of course, with Connie, it just seems like they just worked something out. And so it's like, all right, that's great. So, and of course, Eldridge doesn't really have much of a backstory. Eldridge doesn't have much for this character, sadly. Like we have his kind of his therapy moments, but that's about all that we really get with him. We have Eldridge who's going on and telling his doctor, it's like, well, hey, like you don't know what it's like out there, so like maybe you should come with me one time and just kind of see how it really is, because I'm sure this guy has gotten some duties and some tours and some whatever, but like it's probably been a while. So I think he wants to just kind of eventually just kind of get his feet wet again at some points, just kind of see how things really are. So, because we go on into this next mission, and that ties into that. So we have our characters going to this location, to this facility, and they're kind of making their way through it. We, of course, have Cambridge, who's outside, who's kind of telling these guys, like, hey, like, this place is unsafe, can you guys move? This place is unsafe, can you guys move? He's consistently telling them that. And they're just like, huh? Like, well, hey, we're moving these stones, and, like, we're busy. So the guy's like, well, yeah, but this place is really unsafe. Move. So it's just kind of like a deer. It's just talking to a deer. It's just like, and plus you're also just very, like, you're wanting to just tell this thing, it's like, just move it along. It's like talking to a pet that's not yours, where it's all of a sudden the pet's like, huh? Like, me? And it's like, Yeah, you. Like, I don't know what your name is, but yeah, you. Oh, see, catch you later. It's just so we have the three Eldridge, James, and Sanborn who go into this facility and they find out that there is a bomb that is inside a human body. They end up finding it out that it's that DVD kid. It's the kid with the DVD sets. And so James is kind of telling these guys, is like, hey, I know this kid. And he used to sell me DVDs all the time. Now, like, he's just a human bomb, sadly. So, because of the heinous, like, part of this whole thing, we of course have William that's telling these guys, hey, you guys go on, and I'm just gonna like plop bombs down, and we're just gonna blow this up because I'm like they're gonna have to tear through an actual person to get this thing out. So James is kind of setting this up. Then he cancels the detonation because he's gonna go on and cut into this person and to take this thing out. And then he's going to grab the body and kind of bring it onto this truck for them to just kind of deliver this body somewhere to the hospital. And so Eldridge and Sanborn are talking about, like, yeah, like, I'm sure this guy isn't going to be putting any bomb parts from out of this kid uh, in his little like box, because we find out while they're talking to James that he has a bunch of bomb pieces, and they're like, "Why do you have bomb pieces?" And they just kind of find that very suspicious. And James is like, "Well, like this piece is from the one trigger piece from that one car bomb that I really liked, and this one little piece is from the one uh, bomb that we all first did together." And so it's like, so like all these things weirdly have this like sentimental value, oddly, these kind of little small battery pieces or whatever. So it's like, okay. So all of a sudden we have Cambridge that is just kind of letting these guys go off, and they finally move on. But then all of a sudden, Cambridge is to explode shortly thereafterwards, where he's standing at. And so Eldridge is kind of running out, like, oh my god, where's Doc? Cambridge, where are you at? And we had, of course, James that's telling Eldridge, like, hey, he's dead. Like, we need to go. Like, this guy's dead. There's nothing we can do. He's dead. So I'm sure Eldridge is going to be getting a new doctor soon. So we now go on and have, of course, William James that is to make it back to base. And now he's asking one of the military men, it's like, well, hey, like, this guy who's selling DVDs here, like, do we know how, like, is he like really just like okay to be here? Is he like certified to be here? Because what if he's going on and telling like somebody from this base like what's really going on? And the military guy is just on like, no, all these guys are like certified to be here. Like everything is okay. Everything's on the up and up. And so James is like, I don't know about that. So he himself decides to go and wait for this guy to leave for the day. And so he decides to follow him home to then go on and have William kind of take him, or have this guy take William to this spot to go on and talk to these people, which honestly just kind of leads him to a runaround and just kind of leads him nowhere, to where he just goes on and is to have to forcibly just try to make his way back to base, which they go on and they try to arrest him, and he's like, hey, I'm a military guy, here's my ID. and the officer is, or the military man is asking, of course, William. It's like, hey, where did you go? And he said, I went to a hoe house, uh, a it doesn't matter. So the officer is like, well, hey, like, if you know where this is, tell me where it is exactly. So William is fine. They just kind of let him back onto base. And so now the next mission is that there was to be a a tank that had exploded, and they are trying to figure out exactly how that all happened. And they're immediately thinking it's some kind of suicide bomber, but like, if that really is that case, like, man, was that a heck of a trick. So we have them just trying to figure things out. And so what ends up happening is James is to realize that maybe there is a group of guys that were all going on and kind of just waiting it out for somebody to just kind of walk through here and them to just kind of detonate these charges. And there's actually some people waiting out there to eventually just try to figure out how to get out of here. And so James is pushing the other two guys to go on this hunt down mission to find these people. And Sanborn is like, well, hey, like, we're bomb disposal. We're not like guys that are going on and trying to, like, we're not going to do any investigation. Like, that's not our job. And so James is like, but yeah, but we can catch these guys. And so it's like, okay, fine. So they go on with James, and this leads them to go on this mission where eventually we have it where Eldridge gets captured and he gets dragged off. And now both James and Sanborn are chasing after the guys that are kind of holding on to Eldridge. And so they take these guys down, and so we find out that Eldridge is injured and that he's going to be out for a number of months, and he has to kind of relearn how to walk again with this leg because his femur is shattered. And so now Eldridge is on this helicopter yelling at James, and he, of course, is telling him, it's like, yeah, thanks for having me just go on this mission so you can get your adrenaline jump, or your adrenaline ride. Like, yeah, thanks for that. Now I'm gonna be out for a number of months. So I'm kind of wondering if I was kind of wondering if Eldridge was at that point to get discharged, or if he was just gonna go on and just kind of take that rehab, take that time, and then come back. Like, I'm kind of wondering how that all will work out, or how that would actually work, as far as a kind of thing. Maybe they would just discharge him, I'm assuming, is what actually happen there. Anyways, so, and the interesting part of it is that they only had like 39 days to really just work with William James. And so they're just kind of counting down the days to like stop working with this guy because of how dangerous he is. And like, oh God, I can't wait for us to just work with somebody else. So the very last mission that, of course, now Sanborn and of course James go on to is a guy who is wearing this bombed vest. So we go on and we find out that this guy, after, of course, James is to get suited up here, we find out that this bomb is on a timer and that there seems to be 2 minutes left. It's like, yeah, there's no way. There is no way they're going to easily take this thing off, because there's a number of locks that are attached to this. there's just a whole lot of just things going on. There's a whole lot of bells and whistles on this one. And so James is like needing bolt cutters and like they're trying to figure things out. And they're kind of tempted to want to go on and just like kind of kill this guy. Uh, and then like kind of do like the disposing of the bomb afterwards, simply because like they're just kind of really like concerned that this guy might flip this switch or pull this trigger, even though the translator is telling him like, hey, like he has a family, he has 4 kids, he has this, he has a like, you know what, if I was the guy who was James and I was talking to his translator, I would tell the translator to shut up. Like just tell me anything that this guy is to like give me real information. Just don't tell me everything, because I don't want to know this guy's life story if he's possibly going to die soon, because I don't want that freaking kind of I don't want that information on my brain. Like cuz I would just be like, no, like just don't like, if you're going to translate anything to me, don't translate everything. Just the more important stuff. Because that's just like, you're wanting to help this guy out. It's not like you're like, oh no, like I don't give a shit. Like, I just don't want to hear that kind of horrifying thing that this guy is just like pleading for his life. I don't want to hear that. I wouldn't. So we have we of course have James that is trying to like use these bolt cutters to take down these locks, and he takes down one lock, but he realizes that there's multiple locks on here, and they only have like 2 minutes worth of time, and so James is telling Sanborn to get the heck out of there because there's only like 45 seconds left. So like we have James that's going to be okay because he's going to have this suit, but he's going to have to book it as soon as he can. And so he's telling this guy that he's sorry, but there's no way that they can kind of defuse this bomb, especially considering this one's on a timer. So James runs off, and so this bomb is to die, or this man in this bombed vest is to die. So we have both Jeremy, or James's character, and Sanborn's character that are in this Humvee just kind of just making their way back because there's nothing they can do now. Like their job is basically done with. And so we finally have it where we have Sanborn that's telling James is like, well, you know, man, like I think I really want a kid now. I think I really want a little boy. To just kind of like so that way he can like pass like something on, so he can go on and kind of leave like a mark or his name or whatever. And Sanborn is asking James, is like, man, how do you do it? Like, how do you not like think of all this stuff, like you having a wife, you having a kid, how do you not think of any of that? And James is just like, I don't know, like I just kind of just like I just don't care, I just block it all out. And so yeah, so they're going on, and they're like, we have these characters that are just so just kind of like just broken down, and they're just so upset at this point, and they're just like they're just kind of thinking about their future. And so James goes on, and he is to make it back home and is to be with Connie, going to the grocery store, kind of getting a certain assortment of items. And so James is going and getting the cereal, and he's like, he doesn't, I don't think he really even realizes what cereal he should even get. And so he goes back home where James is just like talking about work with Connie, and he's saying it's like, well, hey, like the military can use more bomb techs, and Connie is just saying like, hey, cut these carrots, like do this, do that, like whatever he wants to do is whatever he's going to do. And but Connie is just like, hey, I don't want to hear about the military. I just want you to be with me right now. Focus on that moment. Because there's a lot of times where you'll get a lot of people that are from the military that have to somehow relate something or other to the military. And no offense to anybody, or there's just like that itch to get back, even though they might have not liked it. They might have been miserable doing it, but like that's all that they talk about when they get home is about being in the service. No offense to anybody, like I get it. So yeah. So with that said, um, we immediately have uh, James going back on and being another kind of bomb disposer of sorts, and he has the gear all on, and he's kind of walking to his next spot. And he's going and doing this 365, so he's doing it for a whole full year. And so, and eventually, like, we're just kind of realizing, like, the tours of which, and so on and so forth. So, with that said, I am going to get out of here so I can go on and do another review for today. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for going on and hearing anything that I have to say here. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.